Now I'm very excited to welcome back one of the best in all of Vegas. You've seen and heard him many times on Wager Talk TV, VSiN, watching Bet On It, Pony Pundits, you name it, radio stations all across America. I'm very pleased to welcome back Mr. Marco D'Angelo from WagerTalk.com. You can follow Marco on Twitter at Marco in Vegas. Marco, my man, Mitch Trubisky is the man in Pittsburgh. I bet you're thinking Super Bowl, aren't you?
When we get to that game, my original thought was I wasn't happy about it, but the more I thought about it, it makes a lot of sense for it. And, he brings some things to the table that we haven't seen in Pittsburgh in a couple years. But of course, there was a little bit of drama this week with Mike Tomlin holding out to the last minute of who was going to be the starter. I said at the beginning of training camp, there's absolutely no way Kenny Pickett will start the season. It's just not the Steeler way. But yet he still tried to, play coy and not announce it till just the other day. So we'll see what happens. Excited about the season. It's the first week of the NFL. Everybody's 0-0. Everybody's live, even the Jets, until after Sunday.
All the heroes are zeros, my man, and all the squares are sharp as they think they are right now. Everyone's 0-0. All the teams are 0-0. Very exciting coming in. And the thing about Mitch, I mean, I agree with starting him, even if Pickett's better, because you don't throw the rookie the first time. First of all, it's a shot against the guy he brought out. You got to give him a chance in the beginning. And plus, then you have a reason, and then mentally the rookie has a mental justification why he's moving in himself rather than, am I jumping this person? Lots of nerves can happen in the beginning, and that's what veterans are for. So even if Pickett's better, I agree with it. But as a Bears fan, I wish you all the best of luck with that one. I personally believe that he was put in bad situations. I don't know what situations Tomlin's going to put him in, because when he was younger, the offense was a mess. You can see that when he was an offensive coordinator, that is Matt Nagy with Kansas City, that was really all Andy Reid, figuring that stuff out. He probably knew some plays, but he couldn't figure out how to gel the team together. But Mitch, it's not like the spread's that big, and we will get to that game. So I'm excited to break that down with you. But before that, Marco, I'm going to get into a couple great questions for our audience that's going to help them along. I would like you to tell us, what are some of the mistakes that newer bettors make coming into NFL week 1?
Well, the biggest thing that, as far as, I look at is, don't overreact to everything that you've heard for the last 4 months. I mean, NFL, it doesn't matter what time of year it is, we're always still talking NFL. They're always still in the news. So everybody's been hearing all of the, water cooler stuff, the talking heads on all the shows about what's, going to happen this season, and, who's improved, and this signing, that signing. You know what? It's baked into the line. We've seen these lines move over the summer. They bring them out early. It seems like every year they're putting up those week 1 NFL lines, even, sooner, because everybody wants to be the first to market. It's a great, marketing strategy for the sports books. And then they know that they got limits on them early. So the market's going to correct itself anyways. They're not leaving themselves, hanging out to dry. But for me, you just be careful. Second thing I say is, don't overreact to what you saw in preseason. Some coaches play preseason games, and who are we going to talk about? John Harbaugh, okay? He plays preseason to win. He wants to win all the time, and that's why they haven't lost a preseason game in how long. So don't overreact to that. There's other teams that maybe struggled a little bit in preseason. Maybe it's a new coaching staff. Maybe they actually use the preseason what it's for, trying to work on the basics and get things ironed out. Look at personnel to get yourself that best 53-man roster. So don't overreact to any preseason results, good or bad. And then the last thing I'll say, and I'll talk, to you about it. You're in Arizona. You guys just got sports betting last year. You got so many more options now. I mean, almost kind of jealous. I mean, we're here still in Vegas. We got to go to the, the books and, deal what they give us. And for so long, Vegas was the only show in town. So you didn't have all of the luxury of the different things that you can bet on. It's not, remember going back to your book on the corner back in Pittsburgh where, we're getting side and total, first half bet, second half bet. That's about it. You know what I mean? Now you can bet on everything, player props. And the further you get away from the normal betting, the more inefficiencies in the market that you can find. That's, the thing, because especially when it comes to the NFL, everybody knows everything. Somebody gets a hangnail and the beat writers got it on Twitter, 10 minutes after it happened. So you're not beating the books to, any breaking news, so to speak. But when you get to the other markets with player props and so forth, that's still new territory. And a lot of people are taking advantage of that. And it's, something that, for me, I've been doing this for, 43 years. I hate to tell my age, but, you're learning every year, Kiev. If you stop learning, you might as well quit because it's going to go by you.
100%. And yes, in Arizona, we are blessed with options. As a matter of fact, I put a player prop in yesterday on the NFL game that's probably not even out in a lot of places in Vegas. And we're spoiled almost. It's like we had nothing and now all of a sudden we have everything. I know lots of you guys that are my friends in Vegas take that drive down to Kingman to make a bet every once in a while, which I crack up about it because I hate that drive personally, my man. It's not so fun. It's not like back in the days where I had a buddy that lived in Vegas. He'd make some plays for me. I was on offshores, obviously the times that I didn't spend in Vegas. And, things change. And now it's like we're blessed with all these outs in Arizona. Just having, books that come out the same time Circa does is wonderful. I got to tell you, people need to learn to take advantage of it. And that's what I always like to preach is you try to get ahead of the line moves, especially if you're not a massive bettor. They're going to take your bet unless you're putting out sick money, and that's important to get ahead of those moves because it gives you a lot of options, and I think a lot of people coming into week one, Marco, I mean, these lines have been out for a long time. We have line value on a lot of the plays that we have, but right now they're pretty stale. People are going to come in with their new FanDuel account, blah, 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 and they're going to, make some plays on some pretty stale lines right now. I mean, maybe if they're a little bit educated, they can wait till Sunday and maybe go for an overreaction or something like that. But you're not going to find value if you're just betting into a very liquid market that's already moved multiple times. So, that's what I think. But hey, Marco, I love what we have going on in AZ land.
Yeah, for sure. One other thing that I'll say that you have in week one that you won't have in the other. We saw it last week in college, Kiev, where, as you said, the numbers are available all summer long. And a lot of times I hear so many, pros, will say, okay, I missed the number when it was, 12. Now it's 14. Well, that's true. You get that locked into your head. But when that number was 12, it was 2 months ago. Okay. And we really didn't know what this is. That was a great number, but we weren't 100% sure that was a great number there. Now that we get to the week of the game, 14's the right number, and it still might be the playable number. But I hear so many guys say, well, I missed that number and I can't play it. That might be a little bit short-sighted sometime. You got to look at what you feel the value is today. Not what you could have got it at. I know we all do that in a stock market too. You always want to buy low and sell high, but sometimes you don't know where the floor and ceiling is truly, and don't miss opportunities. I like to have a winner and maybe a bad line instead of a loser and a good line. I'll take that any day.
Yeah, 100%. And when the lines come out every single week, you're going to have opportunities. And that's what you guys do so well at Wager Talk. The stuff that you guys put out are lines that either over adjusted or still haven't adjusted enough just based upon your research and your information, which is great. And that's kind of like how you help people be profitable over 52.4% in the business. You know, I think that's very important for people to know. Plus teasers. I mean, week one, there's just so much variance. Like you said, just a lot of noise coming left and right. There's hype on these teams like Miami and stuff. It's like, but the truth is you know, week one, fading the new coaches has been pretty good angle, and being on those new coaches hasn't been a good angle over the years. So keep that in mind. Miami's got a new coach. The Raiders have a new coach. There's about 5 or 6 teams that have a new coach or a guy that was kind of regurgitated back into it, as you see with Tampa as well as Lovie Smith in Houston. So definitely keep that in mind. That moves into the next question. What are the best practices for betting week one in general, which we kind of touched on anyway?
Yeah, pretty much. The only other thing I'll add is you will find some trends, and here's going to be a shameless plug. Check out the show I do every week. Bet on it. We've got our master of the data, and I refer to him as Stat Daddy, and that's Ralph Michaels, good friend, of this show with you as well, Kiev. And Ralph comes up with all kinds of stuff, and we have a segment on the show called TNA, and it's unfortunately, sorry guys, it's not the TNA you're thinking about. It's trends and angles.
Oh, we weren't thinking about that.
But he comes up with stuff, and he'll have some, stuff that applies to just week one, and you can check in on that. One of the things that I have found, and it's going to apply to one of the games this week. It's a simple one in week, when you're looking at teams that are underdogs that averaged 24 points or more the previous season. Those have been good plays coming in. And when we get to the Sunday night game this week, we'll talk about that one with Dallas and Tampa. So give you just a little tease there.
All right. It looks like we got a trend going on and all this good stuff. I can't wait to get into it. Let's get into it then. There's a full slate of games going on here in the NFL. We'll start out right away with Buffalo versus LA. And this was 2.5 in a lot of these US books, let's say. Now it's 2. It's kind of back and forth. It's been going from 1.5 to 2.5 over the last couple of weeks, maybe. But Buffalo is a road favorite in LA. And LA has been known to not have a big home field advantage. I wonder if that's changed a little bit now that they won the Super Bowl there and they have a beautiful new SoFi Stadium. So maybe you can get into that a little bit. But being at 51.5 of the total and the Rams dogs at home at 2, do you have any thoughts on this massive first game?
Yeah, it is. And, we've been seeing this every year. The Super Bowl winner gets that Thursday night game, and great point. Normally not a home field advantage for the Rams and the Chargers that play here, but I think that's different for this game. There'll be a lot of Buffalo fans in the stands, no question, but this is your Super Bowl champ. They finally got the job done. Matthew Stafford finally gets his Super Bowl after, moving from Detroit. What a great escape that was for him. But this is one of those ones where there's a couple different ways to look at it. I am very high on Buffalo for the season. Now, for this first game, I don't know I want to step in front of the Super Bowl champs. You got ring ceremonies, all that kind of stuff. It's just a different atmosphere. Plus, we're looking at a number, like you said, there has been a lot of love for Buffalo this year, and I'm one of them, and why not? Everybody talks the same thing, and it's true. They lost the coin flip last year, Kiev. They don't lose that coin flip in that overtime game. They could have been the Super Bowl champs. And, they're coming in here. Maybe they got something to prove against the Super Bowl champs, but to give the Super Bowl champs be underdog at home in week one, it just doesn't seem right. Now we can take the 2.5, whatever we want to do there, or we can get creative. And there's different ways, to do things. And obviously the most logical one is that old 6-point teaser there. I'm going to have me some Rams over the touchdown at home, in their home opener. To me, that's the safest bet in this game. the Rams are going to, I think they're going to lose a step defensively this year. You still got the big guy in there, but, they lost a couple pieces from last year's team. So overall, I think they took a slight step backwards. And we know they're facing a very potent offense with Buffalo and Josh Allen. But I don't see them getting falling behind by 2 scores in this game. I think this will be one of those ones where the old cliche, maybe the team with the the ball last wins. Oh, too soon, Buffalo.
Too soon, my man. Way too soon on that one. But anyways, we'll hear it for some Bills fans. But yeah, I mean, I hope it's like that, because that way our teaser is going to be pretty good. And don't think I didn't already tease this, Marco, because this is the perfect teaser leg. And this is going to be a little wink to later in the show when I give out a teaser every single Thursday morning show that comes out at the Odds Breakers. It's a perfect number to tease. And yeah, you don't make the Super Bowl champ a dog. There's no better motivation in this situation here. The Rams might even be the side, but my numbers has Buffalo -1.5 anyway. So I'm literally right there. I think the total is interesting how it went down a little bit, but totals betting on week 1 is a little bit more variance than certainly the rest of the year. Let's move on to the next game then. We got the San Francisco 49ers with Trey Lance, and somehow they fixed that relationship with Jimmy G against the Bears. The Bears are a stinky home dog here at +7. This total at 41.5 also smells, man. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, this is one of those ones where I'm not going to be too involved in. There's a couple big question marks. Obviously, as you said, the circus with Trey Lance. I don't know if it's good or bad that they kept Jimmy G on the roster. For me, what message does it send? You're telling Trey Lance, you're our guy, and then you keep the insurance policy with Jimmy G. And yeah, you spin it. Well, in case you get hurt, no, I don't think so. The 49ers know this team is built to be a Super Bowl contender, and they want to keep all their options open. And if Trey Lance falters, they got the insurance card there with Jimmy G. I'm not sure I want to lay points on the road with Trey Lance, to start the season. Do I want any part of the Bears? No, I don't like the Bears at all. I think this is going to be a very long season for the Bears. I know you got some, fandom there with the Bears over the years, and this shouldn't be anything new, but there's just too many gaping holes for me. And I just don't think Justin Fields is going to have enough time to do anything. I'm not a big fan of that offensive line. The defense has gotten, considerably worse year after year. What was your mainstay for how many years, Kiev? It's got to be, hard to watch the Bears in that defense now.
It is. But I'll tell you this, the first preseason game looked ugly. For some reason, the Bears kind of looked, what's the word? I would say maybe like formidable a little bit for what I thought in the beginning of the season, just because I took their under 6.5 at plus money. And obviously that's up some great value right now. But at the same time, I did see something with Matt Eberflus and his relationship going on with Fields and these teams. You don't make over adjustments for preseason by any means, but I did bump the Bears up slightly just from what I saw to like maybe like 5th worst to 6th worst or something like that. So it's not like it's a massive change, but how high do I have to be on the 49ers here with this Trey Lance move? I mean, they're doing the opposite of kind of what the Steelers did. They're throwing their rookie in, and they did mend that relationship with Jimmy G, which I love. I think that makes them a Super Bowl contender because they have 2 very good quarterbacks from what I think coming into this, because you have to trust Shanahan here with Lance a little bit. But the big caveat here, you have to remember that Justin Fields was drafted in the same draft class as Lance. Lance was drafted way ahead of this kid, and people were projecting Justin Fields to be the 1, 2, or 3, and he's not. He's coming into this game as a home dog with the chip on his shoulder, and now all the pressure goes to Trey Lance in this massive decision that the 49ers put on them. I'm going to give you a lean to the Chicago Bears at the +7. This could be just one of those weird games that you see and you're like, holy cow, this is almost like that Ohio State Notre Dame game that everyone saw last week. It's almost got that feel to me. coming in here. So I'll give you a lean to the Bears here at the +7. Let's move on to the Colts versus the Texans. Another smelly dog. This was 8 like hours ago, Marco. There must have been some movement here on the Texans going from +8 to +7, but still a pretty large home dog here. Total 46.5. What are your thoughts on this one?
Well, the Colts are one of the teams I'm very high on this year. I actually like the addition of Matt Ryan. I know, Matty Ice is on, the backside, of his career for sure. But you know what? I'll take an old Matty Ice against versus a Carson Wentz. You look at what Indianapolis did last year. They went to the final game of the season. All they had to do was beat Jacksonville to get to the playoffs. Oh. And, they faltered. I look at Carson Wentz and I can account 3 games last year. They went 9-8 last year. He cost them 3 games himself with idiotic decision-making, throwing interceptions deep in his own territory that were just gimme touchdowns for the other team. So with any luck, this team that was 9-8 last year and all those close losses, they had 5 games that they lost by 7 points or less. You just go 50-50 in those coin flip games. This 9-8 team really, could have been just as easily 11 or 12 win team last year. I like them to win their division. I have a future bet on them to win the division. I have a bet on them to make the playoffs. The yes/no prop. So I'm high on them. Now for this game, do I want to lay that many points on the road? Week 1, Matt Ryan still, it's a new offense for him and such. No, I'm not going to do that. But I want no part of Houston. So again, this is one of those ones where if I have anything in this game, I'll take a teaser on Indianapolis, get them just to win this game. I don't think Houston can pull the outright upset here, but this is not going to be a big game on my card as far as the game itself goes.
Yeah, it's another potential teaser leg here. It was 7.5, 8, and that made sense. At the 7, maybe a little bit of sense here. I don't know why for the movement. It must have been just a numbers play, in my opinion. But I'm not high on Lovie Smith. I don't think the Texans have a ton of talent there. I almost think that they're best to lose and get one of those juicy quarterbacks coming up this year. I think Seattle and them are in the same position with that. Maybe even Carolina if Baker doesn't do anything. But the Colts on the road, I hate them on the road in this situation. They seem to falter whenever they go to Jacksonville, that week 1 game that we've seen a couple times over the past years. But I am also high on the Colts. I think Matt Ryan is a big upgrade. The Colts didn't just blow it against Jacksonville. They also blew it against the Raiders the game before that. They went 0-2 those final couple games, Marco, last year, where they could have just won 1 and got the playoffs. So that destroyed my season win total. It started out bad, and I thought the Colts, when they were sitting there with 8 wins, a couple games left, that I was gold, but did not happen. But, I just can't bet on Lovie Smith either. It's just a situation where they're at home and they're coming in as a dog, and you're looking at 7 points here. Bring it below 7 and we'll talk. Then I might be in a position to take the Colts. But right now they are a teaser leg. Move on to the Baltimore Ravens versus the Jets. And this is an interesting line. You got the Jets at +7, -115. The total's 44.5. The whole thing is Zach Wilson playing. The direction is pointing to yes, but should that change the line much? In my opinion, I am not sold on Zach Wilson, and I don't know what the step is down to their backups. I know Flacco's sitting there, and he's played for the Ravens. Maybe that's some motivation. Maybe if Flacco's announced, this actually goes down a little bit more than if Wilson's playing. What I will say is, of course, I have the line value. I did take the Ravens -5, my 5 or 5.5, like a month and a half or 2 ago, and we don't talk about that because we have to talk about the current line right at 7. I can't put a play on either side. That just turns the Ravens into another potential teaser leg, but it's not. The real value is if their market close is at -7.5 on the teaser, passing through the number rather than coming off the number. But that's a whole nother discussion. Total 44.5. I think it's a perfect line. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, to me, it's like the carbon copy of the game we just did, Indianapolis. the Texans, because I'm high on Baltimore this year. This is a team that had everything go wrong last year. They were decimated with injuries, as we know. They had so many close games last year. And in fact, John Harbaugh made decisions in late in games where he bypassed kicking the extra point to tie a game and go into overtime because he didn't think he had enough healthy bodies to play in overtime. And, those decisions all backfired on him. He didn't, none of the gambles came through. So you lose 2 or 3 games like that, cost them the playoffs. That'll be a change this year. But do you want to lay this many points on the road week 1? I'm not a fan of that, obviously. Again, if I'm playing this game, I'm having Baltimore in a situation where I'm teasing them down to just win the game. And that'd be the only way that I look at it. I want no part of the Jets. I don't trust the Jets. Zach, I'm like you with Zach Wilson. Plus, he missed most of the preseason. So, if he does go on Sunday, how effective is he going to be? And then you got Lamar Jackson coming back from, an injury-riddled season last year. We got to keep him upright, give him some protection, and learn to, I know he likes to run the football, and that's, his game, but he's got to be more like Russell Wilson and learn how not to take a hit. Don't go for the extra 2 or 3 yards. Go down, take the 8 or 9 that they give you and stay healthy.
Yeah, 100%. It's one of those games where you hope that the Ravens will finally stay healthy this game here. And Wilson over there. The Jets are a bad franchise. There's no way I can put money on them. But let's move on to the Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Bengals here. And the Bengals are -6.5 at home. And this is the Super Bowl contender last year. The team that went to the Super Bowl is only a 6.5-point favorite against a Mitch Trubisky-led Steelers. Lots of people probably scratching their heads. Total is 44. Marco, why don't you tell us why this line is at 6.5?
Yeah, the total here surprised me that it came this low for a couple reasons. We know that Cincinnati, their offense, they can do good things. We know what they did last year, missing the Super Bowl. We got that Super Bowl hangover jinx there. That's one thing that concerns me about Cincinnati. But from the Pittsburgh side, Pittsburgh is going to try to run the football. That's something that they're going to get back to, obviously, with the stud running back they have in Najee Harris. But as I said, Pittsburgh has some things that they can do offensively that they haven't been able to do the last 2 years. First off, I was a Big Ben fan. There's no question about it. But I'll be the first to admit, the last 2 seasons, he wasn't stretching the field. Okay. Yeah, he got the yardage because they were doing a lot of high percentage stuff. He had great receivers that would turn, an 8 to 10 yard route into, a 15 to 18 yard, yards after the catch. But he wasn't sending people downfield. He just didn't have the arm strength like that anymore. And as far as mobility went, he had none. I mean, Ben took a lot of hits over his career. One of his biggest strengths were it was hard to get him to go down in the pocket. And that also sometimes, caused a lot of his injuries because he would take that extra hit that he didn't need to take. But we got another dimension here with Mitch Trubisky. He's got a cannon for an arm, and he's mobile. That's a new element and a new wrinkle for the Steelers that how many times where if we do find ourselves in one of those 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8 situations where with Ben, you either had to connect or you're punting. He's going to be able to find spots to, tuck the ball and run and keep drives going. And that's going to be good for the Steelers. And, this is his job until either till he gets hurt or the Steelers are out of the playoffs. I know the fans want to see Kenny Pickett, but it's not the Steelers' way. And Mike Tomlin, whether you like him or not, he's a great preparation coach. He's a good coach. The only areas where I think sometimes he gets out-coached is in-game adjustments. especially when he plays Belichick. He's just owned him over the years. But this is a coach that his entire coaching career at Pittsburgh has never had a losing season. Think about that. How many coaches in the NFL can say that? And I'm not going to sell him short. I think this team is undervalued. They got some question marks on the offensive line. Overall, the offensive line is going to be better this year than it was last year, and they added a little bit of depth. They're just a little bit nicked up to start the season, but it's not going to be the big problem that it was last year. And then throw in that you don't have a statue back there at quarterback. That's also going to make the offensive line look better than it was. So for me, if I had to take this one, and I don't want to be a homer, I think I lean to the Steelers plus the 6.5 in the game, but I think I'm going to be more of just a fan this Sunday in this one.
Yeah, and I don't disagree. My number is minus 5.25. So, it just depends upon how key you think 6 is these days. It looks like the data coming in says that 6 is now the third most common number. So keep that in mind. I think that it's a little bit of a weird line that Cincinnati is not favored, but all of us knew that Cincinnati wasn't the best or even the second best team in the AFC. They're probably the third best team last year in the playoffs. Buffalo 1, Kansas City 2, them number 3. So it makes sense that this line is a little bit under the 7, but it's all about Mitch. And I agree that this total seems low because I almost feel like if this is a minus 6.5, that there should be some more points being scored this game. I know that Najee Harris and everything and the Steelers will want to run it, but if you want to win with Mitch, it's not going to be. They're going to be challenging to run. The Bengals are going to stack the box, and they're going to say, "Hey, Mitch, beat us like we've seen you with the Bears a million times. This is how we beat Mitch. We give him pressure and force him to be a quarterback." Well, they need to send him on rollouts, read options, anything to get him out of the pocket and making decisions on the run because he still has some really good feet, and that's where I think it could go over if the Steelers are going to score some points. But I'm a little too close to the spread myself to make a play on this. But it's really interesting to watch, and I'll lean the Steelers at plus 6.5.
Hey,
let's go.
You've
go ahead.
watched Mitch the whole time in Chicago. He's never had this much offensive talent around him.
Mm-hmm.
He's got some exceptional receivers, and the new kid Pickens. This kid he is lighting it up, and they can't wait. Announcers can't wait to get Kenny Pickett in there at quarterbacks to say, Pickett the Pickens.
Pickett the Pickens, Peter Piper, pencil. That's a tongue twister right there, man. I wonder how they're going to get through that, but it's going to be fun to hear Pickett to Pickens. I'm hearing great things about George Pickens, and the Juju Smith-Schuster loss isn't quite as bad now with him looking so good in the preseason, Marco. I'm going to move on to the next game. Saints versus Falcons. Saints is a road favorite, minus 5.5. The total is 42.5. This is a really smelly line, too. It reminds me of another game we're getting to. But I actually did make a play on this, but I made it at the 5. I took the Saints minus 5. And I'll tell you why. Obviously, the coach is gone. Obviously, Sean Payton, retired, and everyone thinks he's going to be the next Cowboys coach in a year or so, which is very possible. But there's still consistency there, with the new coaching staff. Both offensive, defensive coordinators retained. Allen, the coach. So, my opinion is the Saints had a really great defense, but they're just decimated by injuries. And Jameis Winston did a pretty good job last year. Throughout what he had to do to win those first 5 or 6 games. I think he was like a pretty good record coming into when he got injured. Now you have Michael Thomas back, and Michael Thomas is fantastic. You got Jarvis Landry off waivers, which is a very capable receiver, and you have a great draft pick from Ohio State there in Olave. It's like they're kind of fixing everything. Lost a little bit of their offensive line, but they seem to know what they're doing. They have a great defense. Alvin Kamara might get suspended later, but he's not suspended right now. They're going to use him a lot. There's nothing to tell me that Atlanta's really improved. As a matter of fact, I watched some Atlanta in the preseason, and I know it's preseason, you don't overreact, but they still look terrible. They look absolutely awful and putrid, and they have no proven quarterback there. Is Mariota going to do anything? Not in my opinion. So I like the Saints, and I'll give this away at 5.5 because it didn't hit the 6 at a couple stars. So this is one of my free plays. I'm going to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I like the Saints this year. I have a future ticket on the Saints to make the playoffs. I have another ticket where I have the Saints to, at a price, win their division, upset Tampa. I'm just not. This is one of those ones where this line has continually gone up, and it bothers me. Everybody feels the same way about Atlanta, and I feel how you do. I haven't seen any improvement there. Maybe step backwards. Granted, Matt Ryan, the last few years wasn't good there, but Marcus Mariota, I'm not sure that that's the answer. Other than if a play breaks down, he's got that option to keep a play alive. But I'm gonna just watch this one. Maybe jump in game. If I see Atlanta somehow that opening drive, home opener, they get some points on the board, and you can jump in then in game and get the Saints at a reduced number. That might be something I'll look at. And that's a lot of times too, Kiev, we didn't talk at the top of the show. That's another thing to your arsenal. Maybe you don't like the line that you got, to start the game. There's opportunities where, if that one team gets that first score, you can jump in and get an adjusted, number. And that's something that I would consider in this one when I'm watching on Sunday. But to do it pre-flop, as they like to say, no, I'm out on this one. I'm on the sidelines to start.
No, it makes total sense, man. Tough one here. Now, it's just Atlanta just looks so bad, and it could be one of those no dust situations. If this is a blowout and you're kind of kicking yourself in this situation, but I also preach being careful in week one. So I like your live betting angle if you can see that the dinking and dunking isn't going to work against the Saints, because that this is going to be the most dink and dunk offense with a tall guy like Pitts, tall guy like London. Freaking play action, roll Mariota out, the dink and dunk to the tight end. You're going to see that all freaking day. And if the Saints aren't ready for that, then they shouldn't be a contender, because that's going to be the most collegey, easy type offense that you should be able to beat as a defensive coordinator, in my opinion. Let's move on to the next game. We have I scrolled down too far. The Cleveland Browns at the Carolina Panthers, -2.5, 2 and a few books, total low at 42. This is an amazing game because Baker Mayfield is coming in this game. He's put up or shut up, my man. He costed himself $100 million or more by holding out on Cleveland. And you know what? Cleveland rolled the dice and said, well, you know what? I guess you're injured, but of course you're going to say that. Maybe he was injured with his labrum and everything, but Cleveland dumped on him, and now he's got to prove himself all over again to make a contract. Him and his agent cost himself a ton of money, but this man's back is against the wall. He comes to Carolina. You don't think he's waiting for this game as a personal level from any level. I think the players probably see that too with Carolina. I don't like Jacoby Brissett. I know they got the receiver from Dallas, Amari Cooper, but they did lose, obviously, Landry, and they lost a couple other big pass catchers. Who was the other one? Obviously, Odell Beckham was mid-season, but he wasn't great for that team. There's still a lot of talent on this offensive line, but Carolina's problem last year wasn't really their defense. It was just their terrible quarterback play, but they have some pretty good athletes on Carolina. I'm not sure if Matt Rule is worse than what Cleveland's got going on. I'm going to give you a strong lean to the Panthers. What are your thoughts?
Well, this is the old bite the hand that fed you scenario. Baseball, I love taking a picture the first time he faces his old team and all of that. So, yeah, as far as the side stories to this game, this one in the Monday night game's got all of those stories that you could possibly, want in their different situations. Baker, yeah, he's got a chip on his shoulder. He's got something to prove. And my initial reaction is that I was going to take him. I said, you know what? He's got something to prove. He is going to be sky high for this game. But I look at the two rosters and I look at the talent, and Cleveland's just got so much more talent than Carolina up and down. And, I can't disagree with your analysis of Jacoby Brissett, but he's a journeyman. He's not going to kill you, okay? He's not going to make the dumb throws that sometimes Baker tried to make, forcing balls into areas that he thought he was a better quarterback than he was, and he could, pin him at that Brett Favre mentality, okay? Jacoby Brissett's not going to do that. I think he's here just to get them to the end of the suspension for Deshaun Watson. That's, why they went out and got Deshaun Watson. They knew he was going to get a suspension. They didn't know how long it was going to be. This team is built, remember, going into last season, and we talked about at the top of the show, don't buy all the hype that you hear in the offseason, because going into last year, all the hype was, the Cleveland Browns again. And, they had some injuries and everything else, but they were a bust. Right. This team has the talent. And at the end of the season, Baker Mayfield should not have been on the field the last month of the season. He couldn't throw the ball correctly downfield. That Steeler game, the Monday night game, he was struggling. Why they didn't put the backup in, and you had a very capable backup in Case Keenum that you could have used. I still am bitter of losing that teaser last year on Monday Night Football with that late score. But speaking of teaser, this is going to be one of my plays that I'm going to have teased all over the place on Sunday, because it is going to be a low-scoring game. You look at the total, and I can get this game over the touchdown. And I just don't see either team, even on their best, if Baker Mayfield does have a great game, I don't see Cleveland losing separation with this team. And really, you talk about Baker and everything he has to prove. That's true. But you know what? There's a lot of people in that Cleveland locker room. It was divided last year. There's a lot of people that blame Baker for them not going to the next level that they were supposed to do the last couple years. So they're going to be a little bit pumped up themselves to put Baker in his place. So I think that motivational edge kind of comes as a wash here. And I'm going to take Cleveland plus the points in the game, in Cleveland plus the points on the teaser, getting them over the touchdown. And for anybody that's new to sports betting, when you're doing teasers, you want to go through those key numbers that you have here. That's an automatic. But the lower the total, the more valuable every one of those points are that you're adding on to that dog. And that makes Cleveland, I feel, probably the best teaser on the card for this week.
I will definitely say that Cleveland at 2.5 is the best teaser with this total of 42. Makes complete sense to tease Cleveland. I see a one-score game going on right here in Bruin. But one thing I will ask you is, Baker didn't really fit into the Browns offense. Do you think maybe he fits in a little bit more with Matt Rule, more of an air raid type style? You saw at Matt Rule, obviously, what he did at Baylor. Coming into the NFL is different, but maybe a little bit more of a Lincoln Riley feel. I wonder if that's going to come into fruition as well.
I agree with you on that, and I do think Baker's going to have a better year than he had last year, even though he has less talent, because I agree with you on the coaching standpoint of that. But I think there's going to be a learning curve too at the beginning of the season. Remember, when he first went to Cleveland, how many different offensive coordinators did he have those first couple of years? And he was not somebody that, adapted quickly. And I think you're going to have that same issue again, because now he's learning a new offense. Yes, the offense might be better suited for his style, but it's still another new offense and new terminology. And I think it might take a couple games.
All right, makes sense. Let's move on to the next game. That is Philadelphia at Detroit. Detroit, a home dog of +4, total 48.5. This thing's been frozen at 4. There's a ton of line moves you saw in the NFL today. Amazing line moves. Lots of people took positions today, being Wednesday. That happens sometimes. But I'm going to pass on this game. And the reason is because my number's 4.5. The Eagles beat up the bad teams last year, and they sucked against the good teams because they couldn't catch them. But the running game was so good that they're able to pour on points. So I'm passing on this line. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, this is one of the ones that I'll agree with you. I have a small lean to Detroit because I like the things I saw from Detroit last year. The record might not show it, but I saw improvement with the coaching staff. I was not a Matt Patricia fan at all, much like the Nagy regime in Chicago. It was time to, pull the plug. And we saw Dan Campbell. The Lions had a different attitude last year. They lost a couple games in typical Lion fashion. I think about that Baltimore game, when Tucker, hit the game winner from, in another county, it seemed like on that field goal. But do I trust them here with this number? Not 100%. I think this has the chance to go down and be a one-score game, but is that one score going to be a field goal, or is that one score going to be the touchdown? And you hit the nail on the head. The one thing that's good about laying the points on the road is if you have a strong running team, because it cuts down the mistakes, obviously. And if you are sitting there in the fourth quarter with a 3-point game and you've got a great running game and you're trying to just milk the clock, that running game can get you into scoring position. It's not like a passing team trying to protect the lead late and running the football and all you're doing is, you're running 3 plays and killing some clock, but then you're punting the ball away. Here you are getting some first downs and you sneak into that field goal range, and it's like all of a sudden that 3-point game, you put up that late field goal, make it they have to go the length of the field to beat you. Well, if you're plus the 4 and now you just went to 6 down, those are heartbreaking. So that's my only concern there. If Philly wasn't such a good running team, I would probably have Detroit here, but I just don't trust Philly enough to take them on the season home opener, laying points on the road to Detroit.
Oh, I totally agree. Let's move on to the next one, which is the Patriots at the Dolphins. The Patriots are now +3.5. And the Dolphins are now, they got the hook now. It's -3.5. So money came in on the Dolphins since it was 2.5. So I'll be honest, I have a bad number on this one. We have to be honest about our good numbers and our bad numbers. I took the Patriots at +3 2 months ago. And then Matt Patricia being the co-offensive coordinator here, or actually might be the full-time one, really. There's a couple other, obviously Bill Belichick's got influence on the plays. He's going to have influence. But, I mean, I don't like Patricia in this position, and neither does the market. Now, the Patriots look pretty bad in the preseason, but this is still preseason. This is the biggest, maybe preseason reaction going from 2.5 to 3.5, in my opinion. All this hype coming out of the Miami Dolphins, but this goes completely against what I said in the beginning. You have a new coach coming in against Bill Belichick and McDaniel. And I hear great things from Shanahan about McDaniel, but he's not Shanahan. And we don't know what Tua is going to do in this game. This line, I don't care what anyone says, what people saw in the preseason, for a guy like Mac Jones, this is too high. I'm re-giving the Patriots out at +3.5 for 2 stars. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, this is one of those ones where I'm not going to be involved at this time. And it's because there's too much hype on Miami. This is almost, kind of the Cleveland Browns type hype that we had last year. And everybody's saying the same thing. This coach for Miami is perfect for Tua. This, he's a quarterback's coach and everything else. You got to show it to me. And one thing that you're always going to get with Bill Belichick is their teams are always going to be prepared. And Belichick has made a history of making young quarterbacks look like young quarterbacks. Okay. So I don't want to step in front of Bill, but I just don't trust Mac Jones enough. The defense will be good for New England. It'll keep them in the games. But if Miami does take that next step, and, I couldn't understand what unraveled down there last year, that you finished the season going, 7-1, and then you fire the coach. How do you do that? But obviously there was a disconnect between the coach and the quarterback. You got to make a decision between the two, and they believe two is the future. So here we are. This is one of those ones I'll wait and see for a play next week of what I actually see if this team is improved.
What I will say is I don't like the Patriots draft. They didn't sign like 2 or 3 linebackers. They lost 3 of them. And then they're sitting there, didn't even draft a linebacker, which blew my mind. So I almost think I do have a lot of negativity towards the Patriots myself, but this is still Bill Belichick in game here, and he should be able to figure out a way to cover this 3.5, whether it be a backdoor or anything that could come up to fruition here in this game. Let's move on to Jacksonville versus Washington. This moved down from 3 to 2.5. Some money came in on Jacksonville. And that's interesting. The total's 44. Washington, a home favorite, -2.5. Washington does not have much of a home field advantage. But I will say that Jacksonville was freaking awful looking in the preseason, too. I mean, it's weird that this isn't a preseason reaction. This is just a reaction based upon the players that Jacksonville has and the coach, Doug Peterson, in my opinion. But I'll tell you this, they didn't do themselves any favors as far as perception for what they did in the preseason. But I mean, I had this game close. I'll tell you what my number is. It's actually -3. So right on it, Marco, pretty close to. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are the Washington Commanders. I don't know what would possess you to think that you can make Carson Wentz a good quarterback. I'm sorry. I haven't seen anything out of Wentz the last 2 years that would make me want to make him my quarterback. Plus the fact that you played against him twice, every season when he was with Philadelphia, and that should tell you enough. I don't like this Washington team at all. Yes, there's been some hype that, Jacksonville and Trevor Lawrence and Doug Peterson, that this is going to be a match made in heaven, that there'll be improvement. You look at this line, and this is before I saw the 2.5 this morning. Even at 3, I'm saying there's going to be a lot of people that are just going to look at Jacksonville and think about Jacksonville. Okay. They've been perennially bad, and you're laying a field goal in your home opener. It's basically just pick the winner. And I think John Q. Public is going to want to take Washington in this game. And then here we go today. We see sharp money coming in on Jacksonville. I've seen sharp money come in on Jacksonville in the futures market too, on season win totals. People expect them to outperform what Vegas originally put up with their season wins. This is one of those ones with Carson Wentz involved. Now that it's 2.5, it's the magical number as far as a teaser goes. You're going through all of the key numbers. I was going to have a play on Jacksonville at +3. Now I'll have Jacksonville also in the teasers at 8.5, getting them up to 8.5. And I know for people that are saying, well, when it was 3, why didn't you tease it, to 9? Yeah, the 9 is there, but the mathematics behind it is there's not as big of an edge for the added juice that you're laying when you take a team +3 versus a team on a teaser +8.5. It just comes down to the math on it. So I'll have tickets in my pocket of Jacksonville +3, and I'll have more tickets on my pocket of Jacksonville +8.5. I hope that makes sense, Kid.
No, that makes complete sense. Another pretty low total here. Another good teaser leg for Jacksonville. Great call, Marco. Let's move on to the next. We're getting into the later games now. Kansas City versus Arizona. Now, this line is at +6 right now, and Arizona's got some injury woes. I think that was an injury move, going from 4.5 to 6. It went from 3.5 to 4.5 down to 6. because Marcus Golden, their edge rusher, linebacker, outside linebacker, has got a undisclosed injury, and they say it's a game time decision. So we're looking at, they lost a lot of defense, Hicks and that other good edge rusher they had, as well as Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz is very questionable too. So I think that move is based upon some of that. But 6 is also getting kind of high now. And we remember how good Arizona was in the early part of the season. It's almost like Cliff Kingsbury's just really good in the beginning and bad at the end. I also remember how Kansas City kind of is a little shaky at some of their starts here. I'm going to give you a lean to Arizona, but I'm going to watch this line a little bit myself. I wonder if it creeps down or creeps back up. I think it's really interesting because based upon a healthy line, my perfect number here is 2.5. So, I mean, this would be a play for me. So, what are your thoughts, Mark?
My thoughts were I leaned Arizona in this game, and I actually a little bit high on Arizona because, yes, I do remember that 7-0 start last year. And I also remember that the last month of the season, Kyler Murray wasn't himself, had that bum ankle. And so much of his game is his ability to run, his escapability in the pocket. And that wasn't there at the end of the season last year. Is he a pure pocket quarterback? No, he's better on the move, and he didn't have that luxury last year. And I think this is a competitive division with the top 3. Obviously not with Seattle this year, but with the top 3, I think they can beat each other up. Just like I'll be saying the same thing with the AFC West. Those teams are going to beat themselves up. I think Arizona, if they stay healthy, and here we are, week 1, you're talking about some injuries with them and the line moving. If they can stay healthy this year, they are my sleeper to actually, at a nice price. I think when I got it, it was like $420 to win their division. I don't think they should be a 4-1 underdog in this division. Now, that said, for this game, if I had to play the game, I leaned Arizona plus the points, but the injuries are causing me pause, and that's the beauty of betting. Vegas has to put a line out on every single game. We don't have to bet every single game. And this is one of those ones where I'll just sit and watch. And on the same token, I'm going to ask you, it was a weird off season with the issue, with Kyler Murray. Was he going to get the contract? Was he, not happy? Taking down all of his Arizona stuff on his social media. It was kind of bizarre for your franchise quarterback.
My state's franchise quarterback. I probably would rather own Arizona than Chicago right now, personally. But I do have a connection to Arizona. I'm not going to reveal anything, but I'm going to be knocking on that door pretty soon here and see if I can get some better information. I got to tell you, I even with those injuries lean this 6. It's game 1. The Chiefs took plenty of hits themselves in the offseason, and their defense is suspect. Clark's getting old. Their edge rusher. Watt's actually going to be healthy at least for one game that we know of. So I'm really interested in this line now, and this could be a play for me. But the off-season thing is noise because now it's taken care of. So a player's agent tells them, take the team off your Instagram. It's time for you to play hardball. He played hardball. He won. He's good. But it's business now. He's got to look good, and he's got one of his guys that he played in college with in Marquise Brown filling in for DeAndre Hopkins' absence, and hopefully will stay healthy throughout the year. So I think that's kind of an interesting little aspect to this. I want Zach Ertz in. I do, and I'm going to wait on this line because I don't think it goes down anymore. It's going to be interesting to watch. So that's my thoughts on this one, Marco. Can we pass this next game? Giants at Tennessee, my man. I mean, these teams have the most variance for me out of anybody. -5.5 is the perfect smelly number that you can think of. 43.5, anything.
I agree with you 100%, Pass. And that was my notes, is to say to you, I got nothing on this game other than to point out we have seen some sharp money come in on the Giants last night and today. I can tell you, John Q. Public is not betting the New York Football Giants on Monday, Labor Day, and Tuesday morning. Okay, so that is some respected money, but that's all I can say about this game. I want no part of it.
Let's move on to the Green Bay Packers at the Minnesota Vikings. Vikings 1.5 dogs, total 47. I'm just going to tell you that this number's too big. Green Bay last year, not the greatest on the road, but I'll tell you this: they don't care about blowing teams out. They're cool with running clock as long as they keep that 7 points of margin. They're fine. But this makes me like this as a teaser leg here. I know the total's 47, not too high, not as good as some of those teaser legs you talked about earlier. But I'm teasing the Vikings with somebody this week, and I think that Cousins, with all that power, can actually win this game. I think that the whole Devontae Adams leaving, Aaron Rodgers complaining about his young receivers that are very young coming in. You only got Lazard there, who is, let's face it, man, the third best receiver on most teams. I'm going to like the Vikings for a teaser. I'm going to give you a strong lean to them at 1.5. What are your thoughts?
This is probably the strongest game for me on the card, both side and teaser. I'm 100% agreement with you on the Vikings in this game. This is going to be a play. And two things that stick out to me, and everybody always talks about, Kirk Cousins can't win the big game and all that stuff. It's all there. But when you look at the numbers and the consistency, and I know that, he's not flashy, but he still gets the numbers every season. I look at Coach Zimmer, and his time had passed. I think he had lost that team. He couldn't get them over that, proverbial, hump, to win the playoff games and such. I think this is like, a push the restart button. Everybody's excited, having the new coach. We look at it now. It didn't happen in season, but it's kind of the same effect when you got all the pieces of the puzzle there, and then a coach gets fired during the season. You see that spark. You saw it this year in baseball with Philadelphia when they went on that run after they fired the coach and so forth. I think I'm looking for big things from the Vikings, and one of my future bets was to take the Vikings to win the division and to make the playoffs. I think they're capable of doing that this year. Now, on to the flip side, let's talk about Aaron Rodgers. And I know, he does everything. He's got all the numbers and everything. The only thing he doesn't have, other than the one Super Bowl, and that's something that's going to haunt him all the time, is because people feel with the talent he had in Green Bay that he should have had more than the one Super Bowl. Now that Devontae Adams is gone, there's even more pressure, I feel, on Aaron Rodgers to have to deliver this year. I like the Vikings in this game. You start your home opener, a division rival, in the division rival that's been the king of the division for how long? That's just too much. Minnesota's going to hurt me if they lose by more than a touchdown, because I'm going to have a lot of stuff in action and in playing with it. And a lot of the stuff is, and we'll talk about it when we get to the Sunday night and Monday night game, Kiev, is that you do things to help you set up other plays. And there's some situations that we'll be talking about in those Sunday night and Monday night games.
100%. And I think I know what you're getting at here. Let's move on to the Raiders versus the Chargers. -3.5, -115 now at DraftKings. Total's 52.5, very high total. The question really here for most people should not be if the Chargers are going to win this game at all. It should be, is this line right based upon home field advantage? What is the Chargers' home field advantage at SoFi when you have a place like the Raiders coming in, who has probably more fans in LA than the Chargers actually do themselves? I know that it backfired last year, that whole idea, one of the Raiders' L's, but the Raiders also beat them at home where they don't have a ton of home field advantage either. So a very interesting game here. I don't have it at 3.5. I have -2.75. Marco, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, and I agree with you. There will be probably more Raider fans than Charger fans here for this game. It's just the opposite of, like you say, here in Vegas, where, the tickets are harder to get. And the people that do have tickets that are here from Vegas, they're selling their tickets at big profits, like it was for the first, year, 2 years of the Golden Knights situation. But there's a lot of angles in this game and subset stories. For the Raiders, this is the year. They went out and got the big name wide receiver. And for all of the love that, Rodgers and Devontae Adams, got is, the perfect, matchup couple. Let's remember, beforehand, he's going back to his first, you want to say boyfriend, girlfriend type, relationship.
Yeah.
Derek Carr, and him reunite. So there's a lot of excitement about this offense this year. And, they've got weapons. The question is going to be on the defensive side of the football. If they can make the improvements there to be a contender. I think the AFC West is up for grabs, Kiev, because they're all going to beat each other up. They're all improved. They're all very competitive, and any one of them can beat anybody in this division on any given Sunday. And that's why I'm very high on Buffalo to go to the Super Bowl, because I think they're going to have home field advantage just because of the other teams beating themselves up on. And going to Buffalo in January is never fun, especially if you're a West Coast team. For this game, the Chargers got major revenge. If you remember, and I remember the game well because it got my Pittsburgh Steelers into the playoffs last year to get crucified by Kansas City, but it was the final game of the season. It was the Sunday night game, and all they had to do was play to a tie. And, you scoff and laugh about that. And if they played to a tie, both teams got in and the Steelers were out. They were going to overtime. Tie. And as a Steeler fan, I'm like, you got to be effing kidding.
That was amazing.
This is going to happen. It was setting up.
Oh, it was
and
nuts.
Yet the Chargers, the coach just can't help himself. He made so many, the 4th and 2 calls that, the advanced metrics guys tell me, you go for it, this and that, you got to have game flow. You got to understand where you're at on the field. And then at the end of the game, when I feel the Raiders were content to just run the clock out and take the tie, because the only way they could lose was to have a field goal blocked. Why risk it? Take the tie. But the Chargers called timeout. And you know what? The coach said, you know what? You're going to call timeout here when I was going to run the clock down. All right, let's go ahead and get this first down and kick the field goal. And they did. And Chargers out of the playoffs. So they got that motivation there. But my concern is the Chargers defense. Are they going to be able to stop this Raiders team? This is going to be a fun game to watch. I'm a little, do I want to take the obvious and look at the over? I don't know that I can find myself taking the, something that looks so good, but I know one thing. There's no way I could sit there and watch this game and have an under ticket in my pocket. I can't do it. If I bet an under on a game like this, Kiev, I can't watch the game. I'll go back and watch the highlights after and look, dissect the box score. That's the gambler's mentality with these two offenses, because you're looking at, two what I feel are going to be the highest scoring offenses in the NFL this year.
Yeah, it's not going to be one of those Cleveland versus Carolina games. So remember,
not at all, my friend.
No, it's going to be a amazing game to watch. I'm so glad it's slated a little bit later in the day too. Let's move on to the night game. Dallas now is a 2-point dog against Tampa, plus 2.5 actually even. Total is about 51. So, what's interesting about this one, you have all the noise coming out of Tampa, but they still have some very good talent on the high side. I don't think there's a good middle for them. I don't think they're nearly as deep. And if the injury bug hurts them, it's going to hurt them this year. But that doesn't make them necessarily a bad team to bet on when they're the first couple games. In saying that, I think Tampa's got some offensive line injuries. I think the Brady shit is so freaking weird. It's like, when is this guy going to finally come down to earth? And his wife is apparently not happy, according to the rumors, which I called out a while ago, by the way. So I think that there's some issues going there with Tampa. And they do have some new receivers there. They still have Evans there, but no Gronk. The Cowboys coming off that ugly loss. Now, Cowboys obviously are hurting on the wide receiver positions too, but Tolbert could be a good rookie. You still got CeeDee Lamb, you got Dalton Schultz. I think they have a good draft pick from the Badgers and Joe Ferguson for their tight end. They have the two great running backs in Pollard and Elliott. I'm thinking this is getting a little bit bigger, but once again, Marco, I like Dallas as a teaser leg. I don't see them losing by over 7 points at home. So that's my idea on this one. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with you. You take them on the teaser. And speaking of teasers, I teased a little bit telling you we had that big stat. Last 5 years in the NFL, if you play on underdogs who are a good offensive team from last season, and by good offensive team, we talk average 24 or more points per game, and they're an underdog, you just simply blindly played that over the last 5 years. That's a 43-16 against the spread angle. So that puts the Cowboys into play for this game. Now, as far as Tom Brady goes, yeah, this has been a weird offseason. There's no question about it. He retires, then he unretires. Then he doesn't show, he leaves camp. He plays the last preseason game, connected on 6 of 8 and everything else. We say, hey, doesn't matter. Tom Brady, he's not human. Okay. I mean, the guy's 45 years old, great physical shape. Is he a robot or whatever? Well, the one thing that has come out of this, off season is we do know for a fact now that he is human. He is not a robot. And the reason that I can say that he is human, Kiev, is because he's like you and me. He's got a wife that's telling him that's not happy and has something to bitch about, because there's no question that Giselle is not happy with the unretirement news. So yes, Tom Brady is human like you and me, but for this game, there's still a lot of other questions. The whole thing about Bruce Arians stepping away, there's just too much for me in question marks. Yeah, let's give me those teasers. I'll have teasers with Dallas. We'll have a lot of stuff working for us going into Sunday night and Monday night. I'll look for, Dallas here. The other thing that I'm going to say is we remember the game last year. This was the Thursday night opener last year, if you remember, because we were coming off the Super Bowl win for Tampa. And the two teams went up and down the field. Dak coming back from the injury, there was a lot of question marks. What was Dak going to do? The two teams threw for 108 combined passes in that game last year. They didn't run the football that much. The pass to run ratio for the two teams was 108-32. There's a big difference this year, and you touched about the wide receiver issue for Dallas. Dak might struggle a little bit early on. You don't have Amari Cooper there anymore. Gallup is banged up to start the season. Yeah, they still have CeeDee Lamb, but without Cooper there, now CeeDee Lamb is going to get all the double teams. All right, so Dak's going to have to find that number 2 receiver to make some big plays. I don't know that I don't trust Dak in that regard. And if you saw the total after they scored 60 points last year when they played in week 1, and the total last year was 52 and a half because it was a Thursday night standalone game. They brought this one out lower than last year's total. And I think for the reasons I just said, I think you're going to see a more balanced split between the run and the pass, especially on the Dallas side to help, Dak early on. I kind of like the under in this one as well. So that's my other play. But I'm going to tell you this. If you agree with me on the under, wait till Sunday night, because we know the public, after they're done and the dust settles from everything that they did in the afternoon, they're going to line up and want to bet the Sunday night game. And John Q. Public is not lining up to bet the under on a Tom Brady game.
That's right, my man. They're not lining up to bet the under. If you like the over, you definitely take it now as well. But Marco leans to the under, which makes the teaser leg even better for him with that lean. Let's move on to the final game then. Denver versus Seattle, closing out all the stories week 1. My man, Russell Wilson, coming back to Seattle and in front of the whole crowd. Obviously, I cannot believe that they made this game. I think it's fantastic that NFL did this. I love it. I love everything about it. And I think that Seattle being a smelly home dog at +6.5 is interesting. I'm so curious to what that Seattle crowd's going to react to when they see Russell. In my opinion, they might even cheer for him because of how crappy the Seattle Seahawks look so far with all the terrible moves. Geno Smith is not an NFL quarterback, in my opinion. Now, could you say he's a second-string quarterback? Well, I would if he was 2 years in or 3 years in, but he's like 5 years in now. It's time to, cut the chains here. He's not going to prove himself. He hasn't really won a lot of games as a second stringer. There's some lucky passes he had, in my opinion. But I think that this game is really weird because I'm not sure if the crowd's going to go completely against Russell in this situation. AFC versus NFC anyway. My line, and I'm staying, this is another one of those like high variance situations to me. I think I'm staying away from this one, but my line is 7.25. So I have Denver 7.25. The line is 6.5 right now. Would almost make it a play, but probably staying away. Marco, what are your thoughts on the last one?
I got a lot of thoughts. And first off, this is one of those, we talked about Baker and, the hand that fed you, but I said it was kind of a little bit torn because I think the Cleveland players, as we said, blame him for part of, the things. Nobody's blaming Russell Wilson for anything in Seattle. Okay. To be honest with you, the crowd is going to, I think they're going to give him a very warm welcome because I think if you look at it and you want to talk about a torn locker room, I don't know if it's a torn locker room as far as players go, but as far as the fan base goes, for everybody that likes Russell Wilson, Pete Carroll might have worn out his welcome in Seattle. And the reason that Russell Wilson got frustrated there is because the style that Pete Carroll wants to play. He wants to play that low risk offense, keep me in the games, and we find a way to win it in the fourth quarter. Well, that's why Russell Wilson never had glossy stats. They were always good, but they weren't, the Aaron Rodgers type, stuff. And, because he just doesn't get that many opportunities unless they're behind. They don't want to put, them into bad situations. He's got something to prove. Now, does Denver open up the offensive playbook just for Russell Wilson tonight in this game? No, but they've got a major upgrade from any quarterback that they've had in the last several years there. And what better team to be facing than a team that you've seen their defense every day in practice for the last how many years, and you've seen that defense deteriorate dramatically over the last several years. I like Denver. Do I want to lay, like a touchdown on the road? No. This is going to be a game that I am going to have a lot of teasers hooked to Denver with a purpose. I want to have a lot of live teasers where I just got to have Denver win the game on Monday night. What that does is when we get to Monday night, I think you'll see the public as we talk will, if this isn't already there by then, will send this to a solid 7, which will then give me options if I want to take some of this back and, hold my nose and take some Seattle plus a full 7. That's a nice middle for a home underdog with the side stories to this game. Or even sit pat and say, hey, does Denver score first? And then I get an in-game of over 7 for a live middle in this game. You'll have all kinds of opportunities at different points during this game, to add to your portfolio. But it has to start with having the initial bet in place, and that bet in place will be I'll have a lot of things live to Denver on Monday night, and then I'll have different ways to work Monday night around it. One thing I got to say, yeah, Geno Smith starting, I agree with you. Not a fan. I'm even less of a fan of Drew Lock. And the one reason why, of any team to take a shot on Drew Lock, the Seattle Seahawks were the last team, in my opinion, that should have taken that shot. Because no matter what happens, all year, he is going to be compared to the guy you just let go. You can't take the guy that he replaced and bring him here when you're replacing a legend. That's just, I don't get it. That adds so much more pressure on Drew Lock to perform. And I haven't been a fan to begin with. That was the most puzzling signing for me.
Such a weird situation in that trade, you know. I mean, if Pete Carroll's defense can somehow hold out and this total, which is a very weird total at 44.5, kind of goes under, maybe they do cover. But it's a big maybe, and it's still NFL week 1. Wilson's got to have to, he's going to have a little pressure on him too. You know, he's got to prove that he was the guy worth all that money he was paid coming in, and you know, going into Seattle's got to be very surreal for him. Very interesting game, to say the least. Now, what Marco was talking about is some books allow you to put a teaser play in before you have the other leg. Not all books do this, but I love the books that do, because you can put, like, for example, Minnesota at plus 7.5 on half the teaser leg and play the next one later. So what you're doing is just, you know, possibly giving yourself a chance to play it later. But what Marco said is if this number keeps moving up and up, you might want to get a little bit earlier. I think the Dallas one might make a little sense on that. Play one earlier and kind of see where this teaser goes. If for some reason Tampa gets to 3, you're just going to get a little bit better number on your teaser anyway. Marco, thank you so much for coming on, my man, breaking down all these NFL games. I'm shocked that it only took us an hour and 21 minutes to get through this, man. And I was even trying to rush, so I was thinking it could be longer. But man, I love talking to you. I love Wager Talk. I love all the guys you have out there. I love all the great information you give for free out there. It's a fantastic website, wonderful live odds, just some of the best people I know. Where could our listeners get your great information, please?
Yeah, I appreciate it. And I tell you guys, we very excited about, if you do want to check out some of our shows, we've made it even easier. We've got an app this year. Download the app. It's free. It's the Wager Talk TV app. You can get all of our shows in the palm of your hand. We're also streaming this year on Roku and other platforms. So yeah, knock on wood. It's been a hell of a ride, Kiev, and you've been a friend of the site from the inception, and we appreciate working with you. Love doing your show, and same, you know, it's a mutual respect for sure.
Yeah, it's an honor to have you. Make sure you guys check out Marco in Vegas at Wager Talk. It's a massive weekend of NFL. Go to their site. Take a look at what they have to offer. So much great information. Marco, thanks again for coming on.
No problem. Anytime, Kiev.